Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today, we're jumping back into the saga of Kevin in a Big Rig. This video is part 8 in the series from Strong Bad Jr. If you haven't listened to parts 1 through 7, they are linked at the top of the description down below. Highly recommend listening to them first and then coming back to this one. Without further ado, here's Kevin in a Big Rig part 8, Brake Check. Let's jump right in. Hello once again everyone, and thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Kevin in a Big Rig. I know many of you are wearing out the edges of your seats and the refresh buttons of both Reddit and YouTube waiting for this installment, and I am bringing these stories to you as quickly as my schedule will allow while maintaining the quality you deserve. As always, if you haven't already, please check out YouTube channel Karma Comment Chameleon. I know my cliffhangers have been torturing poor Rob for a while, and I'm sure a like and subscribe from you will help his suffering. He puts out quality Reddit-based content every day and never disappoints. Having my stories posted to his channel is truly an honor. And for those of you who have a love-hate relationship with the cliffhangers, I refer you to a quote by the late Bobby Womack. Leave them wanting more, and they'll always call you back. It worked for him, and it worked for Scheherazade. And now you can call off the angry mobs and reseal the pit of eternal Kevins. I present to you Kevin in a Big Rig Part 8, Brake Check. Backstory. This story takes place immediately after the events in Part 7, Flashpoint. After making me dodge a bullet from safety after first Kevin's petty little phone call, he decided to continue along Interstate 90 eastbound through Montana. The winter storm that had forced us to shut down had slowed and moved south during the night, leaving us running along its northern edge. We hadn't seen the last of it. After sending the email that I hoped would seal first Kevin's fate, I tried to get some sleep. It wasn't easy, going over the possible scenarios and contingencies to which launching such an unexpected attack would lead. I didn't expect a quick resolution or that I would be taken seriously at first. That was fine. If I, a lowly truck driver, wasn't enough to get a trucking company to stick to their safety first policy, then I had some bigger pew-pews to play with. I need only to bide my time, give them a fair chance, but give no quarter should they try to hide from their responsibility. If management had any sense, they would play ball and get this moron off the highway. I woke up again around mid-afternoon. First Kevin was still driving, but knowing he would be out of time soon, I decided to get up and see what new mess First Kevin has gotten us into. I pull on my boots and, expecting nothing, I check my phone. To my mild surprise, there's an unread email from my fleet manager. "Okay," it read, "we'll forward this to safety, thanks." "Uh-huh," I said to myself, "passing the buck and covering your butt, smart move. At least one person did the right thing. Let's see if the rest follow suit." I closed the email and head up front. To my relief, first Kevin was on course and with enough fuel to get to the next fuel stop. I say nothing to him. He says nothing to me. Awkward? I was born awkward. Bring it on, Skippy. I take the truck computer, scrolling through the messages to see if anyone from the company had said anything related to the emails I had dropped on half of the company. Again, nothing. They were either ignoring me outright, which would be very bad for them in the long run, or I had unleashed a demon from the safety department who demanded a blood price for everyone letting first Kevin go that long. In any case, there wasn't much I could do until safety made their move or decided not to move. I set the computer down, lit a cigarette, and took out my phone again. I forwarded the nuclear email to my then girlfriend, telling her that if anything happened to me, she was to get this to a lawyer, press charges for negligence, gross misconduct, whatever, and sue this company into bankruptcy. I also BCC her to all future emails, so she would have them as well. Dramatic? Maybe, but I wasn't going to let this get swept under the rug. Next, I checked the weather and see the storm had moved to the south. Although the weather was clearing, the temperature hovered barely above freezing during the day and dropping quickly at night. With the ice and snow from previous storms, this presented a dangerous situation. Ice would thaw during the day, allowing safe travel, but would refreeze into black ice after sunset, making driving unsafe. Icy roads meant more slowdowns and shutdowns from safety, making this trip even more torturous, nerve-wracking, and tempting to smother first Kevin in his sleep, bury him in a shallow grave, and claim he simply wandered off. Tempting. but after the email I had sent, it would look a little too suspicious. I watched Law & Order. First, Kevin drove for about another hour before the computer alarm signals that his drive time is running low. Lucky for him, our next fuel stop is only a few miles away. We get to the truck stop and First Kevin, claiming his poor leg is hurting him, leaves me to handle the refueling while he goes inside. I top off the tanks, give the truck a quick once-over, and go inside myself for supplies to get me through a hard night of driving. As it turned out, that hard night only lasted about 3 hours as the frozen roads forced another shutdown, just as I predicted. This went on for about 2 more days, slow going due to safety-mandated slowdowns during the day and shutdowns coming at night when the roads froze over again. I barely said a word to him, but First Kevin, thinking that he had subjugated me with his little anonymous phone call, regaled me with his tired old stories. Car wrecks, jailbird nephew, 21-day coma, how he was going to cut the engine brakes out of the truck. I began to sympathize with Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day. Every day was simply a repeat of the last. Adding to the frustration was the lack of response to my email to safety. I was getting the feeling that they were actively ignoring me, but I stayed true to my word, sending them daily updates on First Kevin's actions. Most of the updates were simply repeats of previous issues, but one would think that if a peon was willing to take the time to do their job, they would at least send a thank you. By the end of the second day, I start planning to go even higher, wondering how I would go about sending a certified mail to the company CEO. Around early afternoon on the third day, we made it down the eastern slope of the Rockies through Bozeman, Montana. The roads were clear and dry and nothing from safety telling us to stop. I was driving at the time and couldn't help but feel relieved. Montana is a beautiful state, but in that instance, it was Hades. In my mind, I imagined William Shatner saying, "Warp speed, Mr. Sulu," and nailing the accelerator down the interstate, headed for Wyoming. I managed to get us as far as the port of entry in Sheridan, Wyoming, before running out of drive time late that evening. I go inside, check in with the Wyoming DOT, and get a weather update. Y.POE staff are awesome people. They tell me that the roads are clear between there and South Dakota. First good news in a while. I show them the paperwork they ask for, stop by the restroom, and head back to the truck. In the dark parking area, I see the hood of the cab rolled open, and First Kevin shining a flashlight underneath. Odd, but I think he's just checking the oil or looking for fluid leaks. It's a bit of a walk to the truck from the office. The POE has a large parking lot, and most of the closer spaces are taken up by other trucks staying for the night. I expected First Kevin to be done in a few seconds, but by the time I get to the truck, he's still underneath the cab. I can see a pair of pliers in his hand and suddenly become concerned. There was nothing wrong with the truck, and no reason he needed any kind of tool. Not that he should be trusted with one in any case. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. First Kevin, not having heard me approach, nearly jumped out of his skin. "Oh, I was looking at something." "What?" I asked in my not messing around tone. "I saw online how you can disable the Jake brakes. I was gonna try it," he replied. I wasn't mad. I was absolutely fed up with this. "Get in the damn truck, you dumb butt, and if you try that crap again, I'll make sure safety and maintenance get the video." He starts sulking but closes the hood. I climb inside, send another email update including how he just tried to disable an integrated safety system on the truck. This is a major no-no, equal to cutting the brake lines on a car. For a split second, I was tempted to let him hang himself with that stunt, but decided not to because, given his track record, the truck would likely explode with me in it. First Kevin finally pulls out of the POE and gets us going again. I settle in the bunk because I really didn't want to talk to him anymore. It takes a while to get to sleep, partly due to First Kevin's poor driving, and partly because my brain is busy planning out strategies for my inevitable battle with First Kevin and safety. First Kevin drove through the night, managing to get through Wyoming and South Dakota, just shy of the Minnesota border. I wake up late the next morning and check my email. Nothing. Keep digging yourselves in a deeper hole, I think, while getting ready. I was beginning to think they weren't taking me seriously. Then, when he hears me stirring behind him, First Kevin yells back, "Dispatch wants us to head back to main terminal when we deliver." "Oh," I say, legitimately surprised. "Did they say why?" "No," First Kevin replied, before impatiently getting out of the truck. And so it begins, I think to myself. After Chicago, 2 of us will drive back to the terminal, but only one of us will leave. I was determined that no matter what, I would not continue with this fool after this battle with management was over. I had been tossed around, frozen, chewed out by customers and management, deprived of sleep, and driven to the point of insanity over the past 3 months, and I was not going to put up with it any longer. If they tried to pull that "you two need to get along" crap, I would forward everything I had on them to OSHA, DOT, and any government agency I could think of. It would take no time at all to find enough dirt to bury the entire company and send half the managers to jail for negligence. I would convince my friends and family to buy stock in competitors first, of course. Fire me, and I wouldn't stop until I owned every truck in the fleet to soothe my mental and emotional distress. As for First Kevin, they would have to dig up half of the shoulders on Interstate 80 to find his shallow grave. That is, if I felt gracious enough to dig one instead of making him dinner for a pack of coyotes. I had nothing to lose at this point, and I was ready for a fight. I settle into the driver's seat and set up my GPS. It was then that I noticed something odd. On the steering wheel, there are 2 sets of controls. The left side had the cruise control, and the right was the activation button for the engine brakes. These buttons were the recessed type with a protective rubber blister and backlit with an LED so it can be seen in low light. The engine brake switch was damaged, not worn or dirty, but cut away. I look closely, and I can clearly see what I had been afraid of, the telltale cuts from a knife blade. It wasn't some accidental snag or wearing away from use. There were clear, distinct lines marking where the rubber blister had been cut away. The button itself was, fortunately, still intact and functioned. I pressed it, and the indicator light came on. It was immediately clear that First Kevin wasn't able to remove the engine brakes. They were integrated into the engine, and tried to make it so I couldn't turn them on. Too bad for him that the truck's designers decided that the engine brakes were important enough to warrant protecting the on switch. All First Kevin managed to do was give me one more nail for his coffin. Clear proof he had tried to tamper with the truck. I snapped a photo and emailed it to them, explaining this was not like this when I went off duty, and made sure the knife marks were unmistakable. First Kevin comes back on the truck after a bit. I don't mention the switch at all, but without being prompted, First Kevin demanded, "Don't use those Jake brakes." I say nothing at first, but when we leave out, I make sure they engage on the way out of the parking lot and dare him to say anything more about it. I drive through Minnesota without stopping. Each time I have to reduce speed, I make sure to use the engine brakes. They weren't as loud as older models, but it did make a distinctive sound when the truck was coasting. I knew it was pissing him off, and there was nothing he could do about it. Any more damage to the steering wheel and or suspicious damage under the hood, he would have to explain why he damaged a perfectly good truck to disable a safety device. Little did either of us know that the next message that came from the computer would change everything. It was from the fleet manager. "OP urgent, call me ASAP." Uh-oh, I say. Sounds like all hell just broke loose. The company did not allow cell phone use while driving, even hands-free was prohibited, and I wasn't giving First Kevin anything to use against me. I decide to wait until the next fuel stop to make the call. I get to the truck stop, refuel, and go inside the store to place the call while taking the legally mandated 30-minute break. "Hey fleet manager, this is OP, driver ID 9876, I say. "Oh, yeah," she replied, seeming very hesitant. "OP, what the hell is going on? There's no point in playing dumb at this point. You can't launch the professional email equivalent of a nuclear warhead and play innocent. You got my emails." "Yeah, I did," she replied, "and so did every department head in the company. Safety has been going ape crap over this." I really didn't want to, I say. Only a half-truth, but First Kevin is getting more and more dangerous, and I can't stay in this truck with him anymore. "Actually, it's First Kevin I need to talk to you about." "Okay, what's up?" "Well, in your email, you said he had memory problems, and he said he had been in a coma for 21 days. "Yeah. "Are you sure he said 21 days? "It was 21 days, I reply, leaving no room for doubt in my tone. "He has told that same story every day for 3 months, and it's always the same, 21 days. "Yeah, I thought so. He told me the same thing," she claimed. What the F? She knew about this? Are you kidding me? I wanted to blow up right there, but I managed to keep my cool. "What's going on?" I asked calmly. "I'm not sure," she replied. "Safety wanted me to ask you because it struck them as odd." "It was 21 days, I repeat, just to drive home the point." Right, alright, safety wants you guys back here right now. We'll get someone else to run the load. You just get here so we can get this mess straightened out. I was tempted to probe for more information, but I had the feeling there was nothing left to say. Alright, I have enough hours in fuel, so we should get there tonight. Good deal, she replied. We'll talk tomorrow morning, and hangs up. It takes a few seconds to process what just took place. I had expected that the emails would cause a bit of a stir, but to have a truck divert nearly 200 miles to relay a load was unheard of. Well, I got their attention at least. I head back out to the truck. First Kevin was still sleeping, and I had no intention of waking him up to tell him of our new orders. I programmed the route into the GPS and verify it with the atlas. The company's headquarters was only 200 miles or so away, but getting there would take us well away from the interstates and any other major highway. It was shaping up to be a long trip along mostly narrow 2-lane highways south through Wisconsin, Nebraska, and Iowa, Idaho all over again. I then checked the weather and realized then that I had royally pissed off someone in a past life. Remember that winter storm we had hit in Idaho and Montana? It was back, only now it had eaten its Wheaties and bulked up into a full-blown blizzard. Almost the entire route from the truck stop all the way to the company's main terminal was in its sights, and it had itchy trigger fingers. The National Weather Service had issued alerts for the entire area with predictions of heavy snow, high winds, and whiteout conditions. Sounds like fun, right? Under normal situations, I would have taken one look at the weather radar, said F that noise, and told dispatch I wasn't even about to attempt that run. They could simmer for a couple of days. Unfortunately, as was the case with First Kevin, nothing was ever normal. I had to factor his stupidity into every decision I made, and this was a very big issue. This issue boiled down to the company's weather shutdown system. For whatever reason, the shutdowns only pertain to certain highways, primarily interstates and major US highways, between designated towns, mile markers, boundaries, etc. It did not, however, pertain to geographic areas like cities, counties, or states. Instead of all trucks operating in this part of that state, you need to shut down, they were more like any truck on such and such highway in such and such state between mile markers X and Y, shut down now. The problem with this company's system, it didn't issue shutdowns for secondary routes like 2-lane highways. In bad weather, the decision to shut down was a judgment call on the part of the driver, and the decision was never questioned or punished. Federal regulations made it very clear that the driver made the final decision as to when and if the trip would continue. I understood that, but First Kevin on the other hand, and as per First Kevin's precious company route, there wasn't one. The company assigned routes were only generated for trucks under a load assignment. Being diverted like this meant we had to figure it out ourselves. I had no problem with it, but First Kevin, he'd probably take a wrong turn into a ghost town where we would become the inspiration for a new horror movie franchise. Give me a break, I plead to any higher power that may have been listening. I had just gotten word that the hornet's nest I threw into the company's garden party was starting to sting some important butts, and now I'm gonna get taken out by the ghost of Frosty the Snowman. I would have gladly waited it out, but First Kevin, being the little sycophant butt kisser he was, would think that if safety didn't tell him to shut down, he didn't need to shut down. Blinding snow, icy roads, no visibility, it didn't matter to him. He was a company driver, and the company told him what to do. Slow down? Shut down? Only if the company told him to. First Kevin hadn't killed us this far, not for lack of trying, but this was just too much. I made up my mind at that point. No matter what, First Kevin would not sit in that driver's seat at all that night. He wouldn't drive the first inch during that storm, even if I had to kill him. If he took over, he would surely head down the highway at full speed, run headfirst into a total whiteout, slam on the brakes, and send us both on a one-way trip to the afterlife. This little bee had been dragging me through hell for so long, and he was not going to get another chance to kill me. I took a deep, ragged, and exasperated breath. I had two choices in front of me, literally kill First Kevin, or tackle the blizzard-ravaged backroads myself, rock meet hard place. It's been nearly 7 years since that day. Looking at that phone screen with the route plunging into the storm's radar image, even now I often wonder if I made the right decision. I don't know how long I agonized over it, but when the decision was made, it wasn't with absolute certainty. But one thing was clear, there was only one way both of us would make it out of this sub-zero hell alive. F you, First Kevin, I said to myself as I fastened my seatbelt, release the brakes, and roll out to meet the blizzard head on. F you, after everything you've put me through, I'm still trying to save your worthless life. And this is where part 8 ends. I do apologize that this post has been so late in coming. This week has been crazy busy for me. I've had to work longer hours than usual at my job, so writing time has been cut down. Not to worry, as I am still determined to bring these stories to you for your enjoyment. I know many of you are eagerly awaiting to see the fallout from the nuclear email and how many bodies hit the ground before the dust finally settled. So much happened during this time, and it would be criminal to leave out crucial details that take away from the story. Part 9, which I will try my best to have posted this weekend, will be the conclusion of the First Kevin saga. Did First Kevin manage to avoid OP's wrath during the blizzard? Did OP make the right call? How did First Kevin even get a license being so stupid? All questions will be answered in Part 9. Once again, if you haven't already, please check out Rob over at YouTube channel Karma Comment Chameleon. Rob does a phenomenal job telling my stories and those from many other Reddit users, so a like and subscribe is the least you can do for his efforts. Thanks. Until next time, remember, only you can prevent Kevinism. Okay, so I'm not sure if I love or loathe OP at this point. These cliffhangers are going to kill me. It is true though, if you're going to write a story in multiple parts, the best way to keep people interested and keep them wanting more is to leave them with a cliffhanger at the end of every part. This is summed up very well down in the comment section where it says, reading this series is like watching a slow motion collision as it gets worse and worse, just waiting to see if anyone lives. Well, OP, I hope First Kevin doesn't make it out of this one. You mentioned at the end of this one that in part 9, we will know the fate of Kevin, and it'll be the last First Kevin story. So I'm kinda got my hopes up. I guess we'll see what happens. Thanks again for the mentions in your writing, I really appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. If you haven't already, check out the OP Strong Bad Jr. at the links in the description down below. Make sure you leave a comment letting him know that KCC sent you, and how much we're looking forward to the next part. Thanks for watching, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all tomorrow.